Hello and welcome back to another Out of Spec video. You join us here in Frankfurt, Germany with a 2026 Mercedes CLA 250. And we just have completed a 1,300 kilometer or 800 mile road trip. And I just wanted to give you some thoughts on what it was like driving the CLA and what to expect when it comes to the United States and Canada shortly. I think it's going to be for sale soon, last time I checked. So let's get into it. Mercedes completely revamped their entire EV portfolio. They decided less was better. So this is available as a full EV, a hybrid, and internal combustion, and they may do a hydrogen version on it after. This car is all about the numbers. 90 kilowatt hour battery nominal, 85 kilowatt hour usable, 353 kilowatts of peak DC charging, range roughly 500 to 600 kilometers, I would say, based on my experience. But what's also interesting about this car, this is one of those rare electric vehicles that have a 2-speed transmission on the rear axle. And let me tell you something, you actually do feel it. It's sort of like driving a car with a regular automatic transmission. You actually feel the engagement of the motor and disengagement of the transmission at the same time. It's this very unique feeling. If you've ever driven a Porsche Taycan, you sort of know what I'm talking about when you could feel the transmission kicking in. However, it's been a bit of a mixed bag, this car. First of all, I'm very hung up on the looks. Not everyone likes the looks of the grille and the stars that light up on it. It's sitting on 17-inch wheels. Somebody actually pointed out to me that it's missing the aero caps. I'm not too sure about that. I remember when I saw this car at the auto show in Montreal, it had the 18 or 19-inch wheels on it, and that was also a CLA 350 4MATIC. So this one here, CLA 250, rear drive, around 270 horsepower, single motor in the back, very base spec rental car. This is a rental car. We picked this up from SIXT just across at Frankfurt Airport last week. And as I said, we've been on that 1,300 kilometer, 800 mile road trip with it. Phenomenal car, phenomenal road tripper. As I said, I can't get over the looks. Like if you come here and look at it from this angle, it sort of looks like an Opel Insignia. That's what I found. And Mercedes has done their sort of fake, I think on the gas engine, there's going to be fake exhaust tips here. You have your star for the light as well. While you might not be a fan of the looks, I was definitely not a fan of the technology. And we could break this up into two areas. But in terms of tech, what actually powers the car, 800 volt architecture. And as I said, it's all about the numbers at the end of the day, because this is still a fantastic road tripper. We just did a charging test on it, and while that didn't quite go to plan, that usually happens with me, you're still able to drive this on the Autobahn at 200 kilometers an hour, get to an Ionity charging site or any charger these days, and charge it up in about 25 minutes, 10 to 80%. However, one of the issues with this car that you may or may not know about is it only works on 800 volt chargers, 1000 volt chargers. It won't work on Tesla superchargers, basically. Anything that's 400 volt, it won't work. And I tried it out. This car doesn't have the converter in it. And in Europe, that is a, I believe, 800 or 900 euro option on this car to be able to charge on 400 volt equipment. I was told a few months ago at the auto show in my hometown of Montreal that Mercedes was including 400 volt converter with the cars that are coming to North America. So you will be able to do 400 volt Tesla supercharger charging and all of that stuff. However, the charge port is also on the wrong side, because as I said, they're making so many different versions of this car where I guess re-stamping a panel to put on the other side would have been a problem, but these days version 4 post, that's not a huge issue. And again, tech-wise, you have your standard pop-out door handles, which is really normal these days, as this very loud Mercedes Sprinter diesel drives by. In terms of room in the back, yes, it does have quite a large trunk. I haven't been able to open it more than that. I thought it was a safety feature, but it also makes a terrible sound. We have our bags in the back here. There's plenty of room and so on and so forth. As I said, experience-wise, fantastic car driving on the highway, on the Autobahns here. We took it up through Germany. We went up to Amsterdam, went to go see my friend Felix in Amsterdam, drove it into Belgium, back through the Netherlands, and back into Germany. And it's been absolutely fantastic in that regard. As a road tripper, it is amazing, and I cannot wait to drive a CLA 350 in Canada. However, the big selling point with this car was the technology. If you just want to pop in on the other side, and we'll just give a few minutes of the interior overview. So the interior in this car, on the higher trim models, there definitely will be a third screen over here. I've seen this with my own eyes. For a Mercedes interior, I have to admit, it's a bit subpar, in my opinion. You have very scratchy plastics here. It almost feels like my Fiat 500e, which I would expect in that car. And this CLA does have the optional AMG package because we rented it from SIXT, and SIXT tends to spec their cars a bit better. So it has these nice AMG seats, which are a bit uncomfortable on road trips because they are quite hard at the same time. But in here is where the problem started for us on the road trip. We picked up the car last Monday, and generally when you get rental cars these days, they will have CarPlay and the navigation and stuff will be working on them. And we always rent from SIXT. I mean, we've rented BMW iX. We did the big road trip with the Lucid Air previously, and we never had really any problems. However, this one here, it's been nothing but problems with this navigation system and the whole UI experience in general. I'll just explain a bit what was going on. So the car needs to be linked. If you want to go to navigation, the car has to be linked to a certain profile for it to work. So a huge part of the functionality around this car is around its route planning. And because there's no active MBUX navigation, there's no profile set to the car from the rental car company, we weren't able to use route planning. And thus, not being able to use route planning, you can't use battery preconditioning because for whatever reason, certain car companies, mostly the German ones, they like to have navigation based battery preconditioning, which I think is absolutely crazy that you would still do that in this day and age. Instead of just giving a nice big button like the Lucid had saying, hey, warm my battery. Yes, warming my battery. The reason why I say that is generally you know where you're going, so you're not always having to use navigation and preconditioning. If I'm driving, let's say Montreal to Quebec City, for example, I know the way. I don't need to use navigation. I know where to charge. There's literally charging at every exit in Quebec. And just give me manual control over the battery warming, but we might be too stupid for that. But yes, it was quite annoying having to basically Laura sitting there holding her phone, looking at Google Maps, telling me which way to go the entire time because not even CarPlay works because it's all hidden behind this quasi-paywall profile system. The other issue, as good as this is, it is snappy. I'll tell you about the other issue in a second. Like it does work quite well. It's quick, but I really can't show you too much in that regard. Like here's your climate settings, all of that. All of this stuff is really, really quick, easy to use. I'm sure it's an awesome system, but it crashed like 3 times on us. And the worst crash of all was when we were leaving Amsterdam to go pick up the car. The screens were completely dead. Well, here we are inside the Mercedes CLA 250. We still have drive power, I think, but the car screens are completely dead, are not on. And this has been a reoccurring issue on this trip with software problems on this rental car from SIXT. Nothing is working in here, but we're still driving. Oh, absolutely hilarious. This is going to be one of those days. I have a funny feeling that's shaking up to be like that. Yeah, nothing in here is working, but the windows work, so that side of the bus works, but the screens are not on whatsoever. And we tried to press the buttons and everything, and nothing's working. But everything else works. So the network that controls the screens was down. And we had to stop. We wasted half an hour. It was an issue with the 12-volt system. I got everything reset, and then the car worked fine. Doing a EV dance in the parking lot. That might be to do with a software problem that SIXT never did update on the car, but whatever. Regardless, luckily I know what I'm doing and I didn't panic. But if you were not mechanically inclined, you would have had a really, really bad time. The other issue too in this car, it uses those touch swipe buttons on here, those weird tactile buttons. However, they did it another way where you could actually press the button at the same time. So I found as I'm driving, I tend to drive like this. Whenever my hand would come off the wheel, it would change the volume on the steering wheel. Like, just give me a button at that point. Also down here, I found the dynamic select. So your driving modes like eco, sport, and comfort and all of that stuff. I found that to be a bit annoying to press. Like, you had to press it in a certain area for it to work because the whole bezel actually moves. It's not just a single button, but it's one large plastic bezel that you then push. And I apologize for the airplane noise. We are right next to the airport. However, the thing that drove me it just drove me crazy the most with this car was how everything was just like, they cut so much quality. I've had so many Mercedes-Benz products in my life. And what really hit me, besides the plastic, if Laura's will come around on this side, this is what drove me absolutely insane. You know what? Just have a look at the back seats. Actually, I'll get into the back seats. As I said, this is not a full review. This is just a quick rundown. And I'm a pretty big guy, and I sort of fit back here. I mean, I wouldn't want to hit my head against here. Let me crawl out. All right, the biggest issue or the most annoying issue, I should say, with this car was when you're including only 2 buttons on the control for the windows, and you have to press a button to lower the rear windows, that just means that you gave up. This is according to the rental car receipt I got from SIXT. This is a 77,000 euro car, but it doesn't feel like it. The tech is great behind it. I'm not bashing the car. I love Mercedes-Benz. There's a lot of people I know that work at Mercedes-Benz. I just don't feel like they did the best job that they could. Mercedes-Benz, for a long time, their slogan was the best or nothing, but I just don't feel like this is the best. But it does have a frunk, so there is that, which you have to access from here with a double pull. It does have that. So all you frunk people will be happy that there is quite a large frunk in the car. And if you ever have to do a 12-volt reset, this is where you connect. A booster pack is up there with the ice scraper. As we'll close the bonnet back up. In thoughts, I didn't want to turn this into a giant complaint fest. This is still an awesome car. EVs have come such a long way in the last few years, where I think if you drove this at North American highway speeds, or the speeds I usually drive at, I really don't drive over 110 kilometers an hour. So what's that, like 70 miles an hour? Is it for the American viewers? I have to try to do the conversions in my head. I think I can get 600 kilometers of range out of this car. So what's that, like 400 miles, 420 miles, something like that. Please, if I'm wrong, comment on the conversions. Here in Germany, at Autobahn speeds, we were averaging about 17 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers, which I found good at Autobahn speeds. In Holland, we were averaging about 16 kilowatt hours per 100. So probably about 400 to 500 kilometers of range that you can squeeze out of this car, which is absolutely great because you have the charging speed, you have the legs. Distance, covering large swaths of distance is not a problem in this car. I want to review this car with the working software, a proper charge test, not a charger that limits you to 250 kilowatts, 300 amps. But overall, the road trip was amazing. This was an amazing car to drive. And what's even crazier is that you can go to the airport, to Frankfurt Airport, as the 777 lands, you could go to Frankfurt Airport and actually rent this car. This cost us $65 Canadian a day, something around that. It came out to about $350 Canadian for the week rental. So that's it. I'm going to leave it off at that. Yeah, let the comment section know what you think, if I'm complaining too much. But I just felt that this car, because of the software continually glitching, because of it not being linked to a profile, it really took away from that user experience. And I just cannot comprehend why you would put such a huge aspect of the operation of the car behind having to have a profile for it to work. And I just don't understand why you would do that as a manufacturer. That's basically crippling the car at that point. Maybe some of the blame is with Mercedes, maybe some of the blame is with a rental car company, but at the end of the day, Mercedes-Benz does make the product. They do develop the software. I think software-wise, it is good. It's just I don't know why you would want to put it behind like a paywall. So that's it. That was our road trip rundown, living with the Mercedes CLA 250e for a week already. Take care.